the violence of this incident may give it high profile in the world and move things forward. And obviously, the Israelis, smart people, they are going to do everything they can now to develop their own strategies in order to make these things as innocuous without achieving the ends that you want to.
Right.
And in some sense, your countermeasure is you want a high-profile incident. So violence is the best high-profile incident. So is there some sense in which that puts you, I mean, how it sort of leads you to a confrontational countermeasures to combat their non-confrontational but defeating measures. How do you strategize?
Right. I'm not sure I necessarily agree with the whole. I mean, the premise that we get attention because the violence was used, I think, is a condition of the kind of media and societies that we have today. And I've said this to producers on TV, that you're sending kind of the wrong message when you don't pay attention to us until blood is shed. You're only fueling the idea that many Palestinians already have expressed to me that the world only pays attention to them when blood is shed. And that's really not diplomatically, that's not strategically the way we want to operate or the way it should be the case. So it's incumbent upon, I think, all of us to make sure that the media does pay attention the next time, no matter what happens. Furthermore, I would say, just so we're clear, our position, our strategy, the way we operate is we sail to Gaza non-stop. The only way we are stopped is when the Israelis stop us. We don't turn ourselves back. So the Israelis are going to have to use some force of some kind, whether it's bringing in ships that will ram ours and push them, so that they can't continue. We will continue our ships moving forward until we're physically unable to do so. And that's something everybody knows ahead of time. Now, they have ways of stopping our ships without using lethal force, for sure. And we'll see whether or not they use them, those measures. But I can just tell you that so far, the testimony according to the Israeli Commission of Investigation by the commander of the Israeli Armed Forces, in response, when they asked him what he would do differently, he said, well, next time we'll use snipers. So it's not clear that they're not going to use non-lethal methods only. That's first of all. But secondly, what I would say is that I think because of this previous incident, the next flotilla, will be high profile no matter what happens. And we will have with us a lot of media on board, as we did the previous time. And hopefully this time we'll have more mainstream, big U.S. media included in that. And we're talking to people like 60 Minutes. I know, for instance, CNN and Fox all want to come with us. So I think this next one will be a major story because of the previous one. Now, I think the question then becomes down the road, if this one is stopped kind of quietly and without any major incident or anything like that, even with media coverage, if we try to do another one after that, will the media still be interested at that point? And that's, I think, the real question. But that's also incumbent upon us to make it that the story is not just about us and the flotilla, but the story is about the Palestinians in Gaza. And that's an ongoing, unfolding story every day that deserves attention. And that's, I think, where our efforts also go.
This is a little complicated. I'll try to make it simple.
I better write it.
My understanding is the Israeli government position is that it's not possible to take stuff into Gaza without providing material support for Hamas, because Hamas controls everything, right? So, and you made the contrast with George Galloway's position. It seems to me that he, sort of confronts that head on by not recognizing the designation of Hamas as a terrorist organization, in contrast to, say, the U.S. government or the Israeli government, by saying, yeah, we're giving money to Hamas. So that's one position. You obviously have an argument that it's possible to provide things directly to Gazans or to civil society without giving to Hamas or providing material to support to Hamas. So what is that argument? How is stuff actually delivered when the boats arrive to kind of ensure that?
Well, I can tell you what we planned for this previous mission, but of course since we didn't arrive, we couldn't put it in place. We had already had a list of recipients with all the goods that were on the ships earmarked for the recipients ahead of time, so that when we arrived in Gaza, our local partners had already set up a receiving facility where the goods would be brought, and then the receiving organizations would be coming to collect their items, basically that we would know who they are, and they would have to show who they are in order to receive them. And Donna from the Rebuilding Alliance is one of the groups that provided material that was earmarked for specific recipients that they partner with as the Rebuilding Alliance for their projects on the ground. So it's not very complicated. I mean, it's fairly straightforward how to do it.
We've been working with them for years.
Yeah.
So with Gaza Community Mental Health, with a number of NGO partners, and we even put forward a proposal to the UN of how to map exactly how the materials would be received, and also to demonstrate how they'd be used. Because part of the concern was that it's going to be misdirected. No, we know these people really well. We know them in part of our partners are part of the family that Rachel Corey had stood to protect. We've helped rebuild a home for that family. Then there's a soccer program, a kindergarten to be built. We were helping the El Basma Club, which is for disabled young people, with sports equipment of all things. So now we've negotiated a lot with the UN to get the material in, which it almost all got there, except for the last bags of cement.
So it is possible, but the premise, this idea that nothing can enter Gaza without Hamas having a say in it, is to present a picture that either Hamas is completely, totally in control of every single thing that goes on in that place, which is not true, or that every Palestinian is Hamas, which is what Israel wants everybody to believe, but which is not true. And so I think by our strategy, the way we're doing it, we challenge not only that, the blockade and the siege in general, but we challenge this kind of picture that Israel wants to paint of Gaza, and to make it, whatever they call it, the hotbed of terror, or whatever it is that they call it these days. I think that's why we choose this strategy. And again, it's logistically very feasible. It's not. Palestinian civil society has been thriving and existing long before even Hamas came around. So it's not that that these are front organizations or something like that. And they have long history. Many of the organizations working with the UN, being recipients of aid from the UN or from other international organizations. After all, USAID used to have, and maybe still does on paper, have projects in Gaza with local partners. So the whole notion that you have to stop anything from going to Gaza because it'll end up in the hands of Hamas. It's not like Hamas is a big vacuum that sucks up everything. There is a separate, vibrant, independent Palestinian civil society that exists, independent of all the political factions.
So did you receive any apology or compensation after the attack from Israel government?
No.
No? Or warning?
Or what?
Warning.
Warning?
Yeah.
We received plenty of warnings.
Oh, yeah.
But they also warned us, like I said, the first 5 times that we went, we received the same warnings and they didn't do anything. So, but again, we know what we're getting into and we train for it, that this is like any struggle, like any nonviolent resistance. You can expect that the aggressor, your opponent, is going to respond to you. It's how you behave and it's how you overcome their opposition through various strategies and tactics to overcome them. And that's what we're engaged in doing.
All right, maybe 1 or 2 more questions. So you and then you.
Can you elaborate on the Rachel Corey ship? There were reports that it was handed over without any resistance, did not coordinate with the rest of the flotilla, there was no media. And what is the status of the cargo? And my understanding is that there's about 10,000 pounds or more of cargo that was on the Rachel Corey, and it wasn't clear to me from following the media what happened to that.
Right. A lot of